August 26, 1346. A muddy field near the small French village of Crécy is about to become the graveyard of an entire era. 9,000 exhausted Englishmen, mud-stained, hungry, and outnumbered, face 30,000 of Europe's finest warriors. The French army seems unstoppable. They have everything: superior numbers, armored cavalry, and the proud flower of European nobility in their ranks. Confidence oozes from them. So certain are they of victory that French nobles are arguing among themselves over who will have the honor of killing the English king. For hours later, that confidence will rot in the mud. 1,500 French nobles, princes, dukes, and lords will lie dead. The English will lose just 40 men. Not 440. In a single afternoon, 5 centuries of military dominance crumble. The age of the armored knight dies, brought down not by other knights, but by peasants wielding sticks and strings. Among the dead will be the blind king of Bohemia, who charged headlong into death simply because he refused to miss the slaughter. French knights will trample their own allies to escape the chaos. Mercenaries hired by France will be massacred by the very men who paid them. And for weeks, crows will grow so bloated on noble flesh that they'll be unable to fly. This is the Battle of Crécy, the day medieval warfare itself died. The day commoners shattered the illusion of noble invincibility. And the moment the 100 Years' War truly began, with France's most humiliating defeat. By the end of this story, you'll understand how a weapon costing 10 shillings destroyed armor worth £1,000, why French knights butchered their own mercenaries in panic, and how one blind king's suicidal charge became the most legendary act of doomed honor in military history. King Edward III of England has landed in Normandy with roughly 15,000 men, claiming the French throne through his mother's bloodline. His campaign across northern France is brutal: villages burned, crops destroyed, everything in flames. It's called a chevauchée, a sanctioned campaign of pillaging meant to humiliate the French crown by proving King Philip VI couldn't protect his own people. Edward's men have just finished looting Cannes and are retreating toward the English-held port of Calais when the French finally catch them. King Philip VI has assembled one of the largest armies Europe has ever seen, between 30 and 35,000 men, including 12,000 heavily armored cavalry. These are not mere soldiers. They are the nobility of France, the most powerful families in the realm, joined by kings and princes from across Europe. The Holy Roman Empire sends troops. The King of Bohemia rides with his court. Knights from Burgundy, Lorraine, and Moravia join in. It's like a medieval Avengers assembled, glittering armor, proud banners, and egos to match. And every one of them wants English blood. For 500 years, knights have ruled the battlefield. A single armored knight on horseback, weighing nearly a ton combined with his armor and mount, is a living tank. Trained for war since childhood, their armor is worth more than a peasant village earns in a lifetime. Their belief in their own invincibility is absolute. Battles are decided by the thunder of cavalry charges. Infantry? Merely obstacles. Archers? Annoyances. Real men, noble men, fight from horseback with sword and lance. Edward III knows he cannot win by playing that game. He is outnumbered 3-1, his army exhausted from weeks of raiding and running. Supplies are low. Morale is stretched thin. But Edward has one weapon the French do not respect: 5,000 Welsh and English longbowmen. Most of them are commoners, peasants, criminals, laborers. But they've been training for this all their lives. English law requires every man to practice archery every Sunday after church. Other sports are banned if they interfere with bow practice. It's national obsession turned military advantage. The longbow itself is simple: a 6-foot arc of yew wood, no ornamentation, no magic. Yet in skilled hands, it is the deadliest weapon of its age. These archers can release 12 arrows per minute, an arrow every 5 seconds, accurately at targets 250 yards away. That's 2.5 football fields. Their draw weight? Up to 180 pounds. So powerful that archaeologists centuries later will identify longbowmen by their skeletons, warped spines, enlarged shoulders, and arms literally longer on one side from a lifetime of pulling that massive bowstring. Edward positions his army on a slope near Crécy, forcing the French to charge uphill. His men are arranged in 3 divisions with archers forming a V-shaped line between them, overlapping arcs of death that will tear through any charge. Then, Edward makes a decision that shocks everyone. He orders his knights to dismount and fight on foot. To the chivalric mind, it's madness. Knights fight on horseback. It's their identity, their pride, their birthright. Their horses are worth fortunes. Yet Edward knows something the French do not. The age of the mounted knight is over. The English camp is calm that night. Archers wax their bowstrings to keep them dry. Stakes are hammered into the ground to impale charging horses. Trenches are dug by torchlight. Chronicles say Edward even ensures his men eat well that evening, meat and ale before battle. So they rest easy while the French army stumbles into camp hungry and disorganized after a forced march. Every detail screams one thing: discipline versus arrogance. As night falls, the English prepare the field of death. The French prepare for glory. Across the valley, the French camp is the complete opposite. It's chaos dressed as grandeur. Nobles strut in gleaming armor, banners snapping in the wind, their entourages parading past one another in a blur of polished steel and embroidered crests. Laughter, boasting, and arguments echo through the camp as if this were a tournament, not a battlefield. Dukes and counts argue over who will lead the first charge, who will capture the English king, who will claim the richest ransom. They are not thinking like soldiers, they're thinking like performers on a stage. Philip VI, the French king, tries to calm the swelling tide of ego and pride, but no one listens. When dawn breaks on August 26th, the French vanguard must march through the blackened ruins Edward's men have left behind. Villages are still smoking, crops are scorched, and the air stinks of ash and death. Peasants glare silently as thousands of armored knights pass their ruined homes. For the French nobles, it's humiliation, proof that their king has failed to protect his land. For Edward, it's a psychological victory. The devastation itself has become his weapon. By late afternoon, around 4 o'clock, Philip's army finally reaches the slopes of Crécy, tired, hungry, and still marching in disarray. The smart move would be to rest, to plan, to attack the next morning. Philip actually gives that order. But patience has never been the strength of proud men. The nobles see the English on the hill, outnumbered, tired, surrounded, and they see only opportunity. Glory is within reach. Capturing or killing the English king would make their names immortal. Dark clouds gather. The sky turns heavy with rain. The storm hits suddenly, drenching the field in minutes. The French laugh it off. After all, their plate armor will keep them dry. But on the English side, men quietly unstring their bows and tuck the strings beneath helmets and cloaks, keeping them dry. The Genoese crossbowmen, French hired mercenaries, do not. Their bowstrings stretch and sag in the downpour, rendering their weapons nearly useless. A small act of foresight, barely a minute's work, will soon decide the fate of thousands. When the rain ends, King Philip rides forward to inspect the enemy position. He sees the English calmly arranged on the slope, banners waving, lines tight and unbroken. He senses danger. He orders his army to hold position until morning. But his words dissolve into the wind. Behind him, counts and dukes are already shouting, lowering lances, urging their horses forward. The day is wasting. Glory waits for no man. In moments, the king's command disintegrates. The army is no longer an army. It's a mob of impatient aristocrats, charging for pride, not strategy. The Battle of Crécy begins not with order, but with arrogance and chaos. The first wave belongs to the Genoese crossbowmen. 5,000 of them, elite mercenaries armed with deadly crossbows capable of piercing armor. They're the best shooters money can buy. But everything goes wrong before they even fire a shot. Their pavises, large shields used to reload safely, are still with the baggage train miles behind. Their crossbow strings are still wet and stretched. They're exhausted from the forced march. Yet the French nobles behind them scream for them to advance. And so they do. At around 150 yards, the Genoese raise their crossbows and unleash the first volley. The bolts fall short. Most don't even reach the English lines. Then the air itself changes. 5,000 longbows draw in unison. The sound is like a giant breath before a storm. And then, release. Witnesses describe it as thunder. The sky darkens as tens of thousands of arrows rise together, then fall as one. In seconds, the Genoese are being torn apart. Each English archer fires 12 arrows a minute. That's 60,000 arrows every 60 seconds, falling like a rain of iron. The Genoese panic. Their reloading time is too slow, 30 seconds compared to 5. They have no shields, no cover, no chance. Arrows punch through faces, throats, and joints. The ground becomes slick with blood and mud. The Genoese break and run, desperately fleeing toward the French lines. But behind them, the French nobles see only cowardice. The Count of Alençon, furious at what he calls the rabble's retreat, shouts to his men, "Kill me this scum that blocks our way." And so the French knights spur their horses forward, straight into their own mercenaries. Swords flash, hooves crush, screams fill the field. The French literally slaughter the Genoese who were supposed to fight for them. Between the English arrows and the French blades, the mercenaries are annihilated. Those who survive curse their employers and flee for good. Now, with their own allies dead at their feet, the French nobles lower their lances and charge. 12,000 armored knights surge forward through the mud, climbing uphill toward the English line. Their armor gleams, their banners ripple, and the sound of hooves becomes a rolling thunder across the valley. But this is no parade ground. The field is soaked and broken. Hidden ditches and stakes lie waiting. And the air, already thick with arrows, is about to become a storm. The longbows begin again. Thousands of arrows whistle downrange. At long distance, they may not pierce good plate armor, but they don't need to. They hit the horses, through the eyes, the neck, the legs. A warhorse struck by multiple arrows screams, rears, and collapses, becoming a 1,000-pound obstacle for the riders behind. The perfect French formation dissolves instantly. Horses crash into horses, knights stumble and fall, the mud sucks at their boots and drags them down. At closer range, under 100 yards, the arrows become unstoppable. The longbow's bodkin points punch through chainmail and find the gaps in plate, under armpits, through visors into groins and necks. Even when they don't pierce, the impact is brutal. Imagine being inside a steel shell, pelted by hammers from every direction. The knights stagger, disoriented, deafened, buried in chaos. Wave after wave charges, and each wave dies a little faster than the last. The English archers have pre-driven arrows into the ground for faster reload. They never stop. Arrows fall so thick that some accounts say the knights couldn't see through them. The French are blinded by death itself. And when the archers begin to run out of ammunition, they do something that chills the blood. They run forward, into the field of corpses, pull arrows from the bodies of the dead and dying French knights, and fire them back. The French are being killed by their own arrows, their own suffering recycled into the next volley of death. In the midst of the carnage rides a blind man, the King of Bohemia, John of Luxembourg. He has been blind for 10 years, but still rides into battle, refusing to stay behind. When he realizes the battle is lost, he speaks words that will echo through history. The King of Bohemia does not flee from battle. He orders his knights to tie their horses' reins to his so they can lead him into combat. He wants to strike just one blow with his sword before dying. And so they ride, 5 knights and 1 blind king, charging directly into the English line. They are all cut down within moments. When his body is found, the King of Bohemia is still bound to his fallen knights, sword in hand, his blind eyes open to the sky. He had indeed struck one blow before death. Edward's son, the young Prince of Wales, later called the Black Prince, is so moved that he takes the Bohemian king's emblem. 3 ostrich feathers with the motto, Ich diene, I serve. It remains the symbol of the Prince of Wales to this day. As the sun sets, the French have charged 16 times. 16 separate assaults, each one broken, bloodier, and more chaotic than the last. By the final charge, they are fighting over the bodies of their own comrades, hacking through mud and flesh for a chance at glory that will never come. Even King Philip himself rides into the melee. His horse is shot from under him, an arrow pierces his jaw, and his guards have to drag him away while he struggles to rejoin the battle. By nightfall, it is over. The sacred oriflamme, France's battle banner, believed to guarantee victory, is abandoned in the mud. The English cannot believe what they've done. They remain in formation all night, killing any wounded Frenchmen who move, too stunned to trust that it's truly finished. When dawn comes, the horror is revealed. Morning rises over Crécy, and the fog lifts to reveal a scene that looks more like a butcher's yard than a battlefield. The valley is carpeted with corpses. Thousands of men, once the pride of France, lie tangled in the mud, their armor caked in blood and dirt. The air is thick with the stench of death and the buzzing of flies. As the English move cautiously across the field, they realize the scale of what they've done. The cream of French nobility is gone. The Count of Flanders, the Duke of Lorraine, the Count of Blois, the Count of Alsace, all dead. 11 princes lie among them. Hundreds of bannered knights. In total, 1,500 nobles. The Genoese mercenaries who didn't flee have all been killed, many by the very men who hired them. And the English losses? 40 men. Only 2 of them knights. 1 English knight for every 750 French nobles. The numbers are so absurd that chroniclers refuse to believe them. Some claim divine intervention. But the truth is far simpler. The longbow had ended the age of the knight in a single afternoon. Yet the real devastation isn't just in the number of dead, it's who died. For centuries, war among nobles was a game of status and ransom. Capturing an enemy lord meant profit, not bloodshed. You didn't kill men of value, you sold them back. But at Crécy, that unwritten rule disintegrated. The English archers, peasants with no sense of chivalric honor, killed everyone. They didn't care about titles or heraldry. They shot dukes and counts through the face the same as any soldier. The psychological shock to Europe was enormous. For half a millennium, knights had believed themselves invincible, blessed by God, superior by birth and by skill. But on this muddy hill, that illusion died. A peasant with a bow could kill a king's son as easily as a farmer's boy. The hierarchy of blood and honor had been replaced by a hierarchy of skill and discipline. Crécy didn't just break an army. It broke the idea of nobility through combat. In the days after the battle, the fields rot under the summer sun. There are not enough men of proper rank left to bury the fallen nobility with ceremony. The ground is too thick with armor and flesh to dig graves. Bodies are stripped of their gold and fine cloth. Crows feast on them until they're too fat to fly, hopping from corpse to corpse. Wolves come down from the forest to feed. Local peasants scour the battlefield for loot, jewels, rings, weapons, finding enough wealth in a single day to change their lives forever. The once glorious armor of French knights, forged by the best smiths in Europe, is melted down and sold for scrap. The English, exhausted and stunned by their own success, gather their wounded and march toward Calais, leaving behind a landscape so thick with noble corpses that locals later call it the Field of the Cloth of Gold. 4 years afterward, farmers plowing that soil will turn up bones, knights' helmets, fragments of gilded armor, and rusted swords half buried in the dirt. In France, the shock runs deep. Entire regions lose their lords overnight. Power structures collapse. Castles are left leaderless. The French monarchy scrambles to fill the void, rebuilding an army that has lost its core. The lesson seems obvious. Discipline and preparation beat pride and bloodline. Yet France doesn't learn it immediately. 10 years later, at Poitiers, they repeat the same mistake, charging uphill into a wall of English archers. They lose again, and this time even their king is captured. It takes nearly a century for the French to fully accept that warfare has changed forever. The chivalric age, the age of knights, banners, and mounted glory, is over. From now on, war will be about firepower, planning, and position, not courage, not birthright. The longbow becomes the symbol of this new reality. But even that dominance won't last. The longbow's power lies in skill, years of daily practice, strength built from childhood. You can't mass-produce longbowmen, you have to raise them. When gunpowder arrives, the balance shifts again. A weapon that any peasant can learn to use in a single day makes the bow obsolete. The very tool that destroyed the knight will, in turn, be destroyed by progress. Yet the message Crécy left behind remains timeless. Technology and discipline will always defeat arrogance and tradition. There is one man, though, whose death becomes legend, the blind King John of Bohemia. Even in defeat, his courage turns him into a symbol of chivalry's final gasp. His last words, "The King of Bohemia does not flee from battle," echo through centuries as the purest expression of doomed honor. His body, found still bound to his companions, becomes the image of loyalty and pride taken to its tragic end. The Black Prince's choice to adopt his feathers and motto ensures that this act of courage is remembered forever. John's death marks the last heartbeat of an old world, a world where nobility meant something more than wealth, a world where men believed honor could triumph over death. But Crécy proved otherwise. Modern historians call it a revolution in warfare, the first modern battle in European history. It taught lessons that armies still follow today. That superior numbers mean nothing without coordination. That defense and positioning defeat blind aggression. That discipline outlasts valor. Every modern military doctrine, firepower over heroics, preparation over pride, can trace its roots back to that muddy field in northern France. And yet, the most haunting image of all remains not the victory, but the madness. French knights, once the pride of Christendom, trampling their own allies to death in their rush to charge, while English peasants calmly draw and release, turning chaos into methodical slaughter. The Count of Alain, the same man who ordered his own Genoese mercenaries killed, is himself struck through the face by an arrow moments later. The French kill more of their own men than the English ever could. Even the scavengers of the field, those bloated crows too fat to take flight, seem like grim metaphors for a dying order, too glutted on pride to rise again. Today, a small stone monument stands at Crécy. Tour buses rarely stop. The field is quiet, just grass and wind. But on August 26, 1346, this was where history pivoted. In a single afternoon, the world changed. 5 centuries of knightly tradition ended. The dream of noble invincibility died. And it wasn't slain by kings or princes, it was ended by peasants, with bent sticks and strings. At Crécy, the English didn't just win a battle. They proved that courage could not outfight mathematics, that bloodline could not deflect an arrow, and that the age of chivalry was over. France lost more than men that day. It lost its understanding of the world itself. And all it took was 5,000 archers practicing every Sunday after church.